was a college student in sunny Buffalo, State University of New York, Buffalo. And as he was walking down the corridor one day, he saw through the crack of a door Srila Prabhupada giving a lecture. And Maharaj was curious what's happening in this room. And of course, that was where it connected. And from there, started reading books, chanting Hare Krishna. He had double major, yet he was chanting 16 rounds. He was acing all his courses, as well as reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and eventually became the temple commander of New York Temple. And he was, he was in charge of the preaching there. Every single day, Harinam happening, book distribution happening, and then from brahmachari to sannyasi to guru to one of the leaders, foremost leaders in the ISKCON organization globally as a governing body commissioner. And he's also, as a guru, we have defined, who is a guru, whose senses are controlled, who can clarify our doubts, etc., that we discussed in the past. So Maharaj is that person, and we are very fortunate to actually interact with him. So we have a lot of time for Q&A today. Around 40 minutes is allocated just for Q&A. So have your questions. You can ask by unmuting your mic at the end, or you can ask in the chat section, and I will read it out to Maharaj. But definitely ask your questions, all your doubts that you have. This is a very rare opportunity. I'll just quote a little bit of Chaitanya Charitamrita that says, Labhamatra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hai, which means even a moment's association with the pure devotee, all success is achieved. Perfection in life is achieved. So we have more than just a moment with Maharaj, and I invite Maharaj to please unmute himself and kindly address the audience. You're muted, Maharaj. Whoever is managing the computer can kindly unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
We're ready to go?
Yes.
I noted that you said 40 minutes for Q&A. How much time for speaking before Q&A?
30 to 40 minutes.
Okay.
As you see
Okay,
fit.
got it. I think a good beginning is something of a disclaimer. And the disclaimer is I've been practicing Krishna consciousness full-time for more than 51 years. That's a lot of years. And during those 51 years, either brahmachari or sannyas, and thus I've not been in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness on the active path of career development, etc., as are all of you. So I'm one sense, I'm disqualified to speak on this topic. So I'll just speak on principles that can be applied. And from what I've understood from the introduction here, you've already gone through sections of Bhagavad Gita that speak of detached work. Certainly that's a big part of the path of yoga, because attachment doesn't lead to elevation of consciousness. Attachment leads to lowering of consciousness and so forth. I'm going to start with some assumptions that you have a foundation of those points. Just repeat something that I heard in a lecture from Srila Prabhupada, a recorded lecture from Srila Prabhupada the other day. Detachment without knowledge is not possible. I'll say it again. Detachment without knowledge, transcendental knowledge, is not possible. So I'll be making some references to points of knowledge that will assist in detachment. Second point, knowledge, it's not rooted in bhakti, is temporary at best. It's incomplete. So say it positively. Bhakti is the foundation for knowledge, which is the foundation for detachment. But you have to start somewhere. So my understanding with the audience here is that you already have some enthusiasm for career development, and you also have some enthusiasm for spiritual elevation and how to work through the attachment that comes from career development and end up with elevation of consciousness or spiritual elevation. A nice picture, think of the universe in your mind, and according to the description of the Vedas, there's upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. And where we are, this Bhul Mandala region is in the middle, and it's characterized by passion or fruitive activity. And career development is largely passion, striving to achieve some goal, because you can't be successful in your careers if you're not striving for some goal, or in your education and further development, etc., etc. That's this place. It's the nature of this place. Passion, fruitive activities, and trying to be the enjoyer of those fruitive activities, the right results of those fruitive activities. That's this place. The higher planetary systems is the mode of goodness, where sacrifice, informal Vedic fire sacrifice, even above the heavenly planets, that's a place where people are enjoying the fruits of their sacrifice in this earthly realm. And then just above Svarga, the heavenly realm, is Janaloka. Janaloka is a place, no, Maharloka. Maharloka is a place where people not just do sacrifice, but they see the Supreme Lord extending his hands from the fire to receive whatever they're offering. So it's not just sacrifice to get release from the bondage of fruitive activities, but it's sacrifice for meeting the Supreme Lord, experiencing the presence of the Supreme Lord. And then there's higher planets and higher planets. And here we are back again in the middle planetary region. Beyond those upper planetary systems, beyond the upper planetary systems, is what Krishna is recommending in the yoga system, to strive for going beyond the cycle of birth and death. Here we are in the middle planetary system, where we're predominantly the atmosphere of this place, and souls that occupy this place are interested in fruitive activities and prospering. Those who are theistic, they want to prosper and go to the heavenly regions. And those who are practicing bhakti want to go beyond the cycle of birth and death. But here we are with our material desires for career development and prospering and enjoying the fruits of our work. While the opposite, or the apparently opposite principle of spiritual elevation, how to live a life of detachment. Well, when the atmosphere in which we live, the way in which we've grown up and have been trained, have been encouraged, and is within our systems, is fruitive work, enhancing the capacity of fruitive work and being the enjoyer of the fruits of that fruitive work. It requires faith in there's something beyond all of this. So I'm repeating things that I'm sure you've already covered, but it's essential for having a spirit of detachment, a life of sannyas, even when living within the world and doing worldly things. There has to be some faith, adau shraddha, some preliminary faith. This was where I started in college, since it was mentioned. My position in college was three things, and probably for you also. There's a higher reality, number one. Number two, I don't know what it is. Number three, I want to know what it is, and I want to be there. That higher reality place. So with that faith, then how to continue with detachment in the worldliness of the place where we are and the consciousness that we're carrying. Well, the very next principle in Bhakti path is sadhu sangha, association with those who are in touch with Sat. Sadhu means those who are connected to Sat. Sadhu, same verbal root. Those who are in touch with Sat. That those who are in touch with Sat are devotees. Those are the sadhus, according to Bhagavad Gita. Those are sadhus. Mai chananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini. Sorry to make references, but to go on a spiritual path that's not just sentimental mush, it requires reference to authoritative scripture to guide us to get to where we want to go. So there will be some references here. I hope that's okay. That's my life. One of the important teachings about detachment, I'm going to make a reference to Rupa Goswami. Probably you all know. Who is Rupa Goswami? He is the chief follower amongst the many, many, many exalted followers of Lord Chaitanya, was next in line in his disciplic succession. Rupa Goswami, very exalted. And he gave a nice definition of detachment. Well, it's two parts. One is what detachment isn't and what detachment is. What detachment isn't is throwing things away. Negation, abject negation of things. So that's not the program. The program is, listen carefully, anasaktasya vishayan. Vishaya, we know from Bhagavad Gita, it means enjoying the senses, because that's what fruit of activity is for. You get fruits and you want to enjoy the fruits. How do you enjoy the fruits? With your senses. Vishaya. So at the beginning part is without attachment to Vishaya or sense enjoyment. Anasaktasya. Anasaktasya. Without attachment to Vishaya. Enjoying the senses. The objects of the senses through our senses. Vishaya. Without attachment to Vishaya. Very interesting word. Yatarham upayunjitaha. Yatarham. Yatarham is translated as according to suitability. That's kind of fuzzy. According to suitability. One should accept things that are in relation to Hari. One should accept things that are in relation to Hari and engage them in service to Hari. And what things should you accept? Well, according to suitability. What does that mean, according to suitability? The principle of suitability is always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. There's several verses in the scriptures that indicate this. You accept those things that are meant for, they're conducive for remembering Krishna, and things that cause blocking of remembrance of Krishna, you set them to the side. Yena tena pakarina manak krishnena veshayet. There's one scriptural reference. Mana krishne niveshayet. The mind should always be upon Krishna. So what's suitable? When your mind is upon Krishna. What's unsuitable? when your mind gets clouded and you forget Krishna. Too much or too little. Either end of the spectrum. Too much, too little. So what's just right? What's just right is you, each of us, have a desire to connect with that higher reality that we're not really sure what it is, but we have faith that it exists. We want to connect with that higher reality, of course, is Krishna and a relationship with Krishna. So we accept those things that are conducive to remembering Krishna and engaging them in his service. That's the bhakti principle of detachment. So how to apply that bhakti principle of detachment? Well, let's go to the mode of goodness, because that's going to lead to elevation of consciousness, like that structure of the universe example that I gave. The mode of goodness leads to the higher planetary systems or higher realms of experience, the world around you, even you're in this world. Higher consciousness allows you to experience lightness and detachment. So, simplicity. It has direct bearing on according to suitability. Yatarham upayunjitaha. According to suitability. Simplicity. So, simplicity. Let's say, how many pair of shoes do you need? Or how many cell phones do you need? You call them mobile phones there. Mobile phones. How many mobile phones do you need? Need. Keep it simple. How many thises and that's, and for what varieties of thises and that's. And the life of goodness is keep it simple. What you need, accept. What you need, accept. And what you need and accept should be something that's sustainable. Sustainability. Something that you can do and your mind is peaceful. It's not overcomplicating, and it's not nagging your mind that you don't have something that you actually need. And simplicity, as you're making spiritual progress, the fulcrum moves. That is to say, what you really needs diminish with higher consciousness. How much you eat, how much you do anything. That's in relation to the temporary. You diminish those things and do the things that are essential with great vigor and alacrity. So like career development. You do those things that are going to help you with your career development. But, it's a big but, what's the purpose behind that career development? A, fruitive activity. So then I can get rewards for my fruitive activity, either gross, like money, or recognition from others, or a self-recognition. I did it, yay. And then it's ego-based and entangling, and you forget who you are and the purpose of life. So that's not according to suitability. But supposing it's career development for some other purpose. I'll just explain this principle. I'm sure you'll understand how it can be applied in your lives. One of the rules that we've had with college outreach programs, if someone is going to be in charge, a student is going to be in charge of a particular club or a student organization, a requirement is they excel in their academics. Why? Because other students will look at whether they're doing well in their academics, because that's the barometer of whether they should participate or not. If someone is doing really well, excellently well in their academics, and they have nice qualities because they're practicing bhakti very nicely. Oh, maybe I'll take it seriously, look into this. And if someone is kind of mediocre or floundering, well, I don't know if I want to find out more about this bhakti process because I want to do well in my academics because I'm a fruitive worker. So, and it's true in your careers and your life. You should do very well in what you do, not just for satisfaction or for material gain. Those things are going to be there anyway. The sense of achievement and accomplishment and recognition from others and all those lovely things that cause our forgetfulness. But for the purpose of serving Krishna. Krishna is the giver of whatever ability you have, each of us has, to do something, to walk across the room, or to do well in your career, or to cook nicely, or to speak nicely, or to behave nicely, or anything nicely. Krishna is the bestower of all nice things. So we want to please him by offering nice things for his pleasure. The principle I'm describing is a principle of for the pleasure of Krishna. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Uchate. That's this other half of this detachment verse by Rupa Goswami. Without attachment to being the enjoyer of the activity or the fruits of the activity or the prestige that may come from being successful in your activities, without that, without attachment to that, you, according to suitability, you accept things. And you dedicate yourself, meanwhile, internally, which then comes externally, you dedicate yourself to service to Krishna. Now that's a Rupa Goswami definition. I hope it's clear what it is and how to apply it. There's another verse which I won't Rupa Goswami, but we're followers of Rupa Goswami, Rupa Anugas. We're followers of Rupa Goswami, and he teaches the principle of bhakti similarly. Where Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. It's a long verse, that's just a part of it, where the teaching is Krishna should be pleased, in simple language. Krishna should be pleased. As that spirit, the bhakti spirit, that Krishna should be pleased, all other desirable things follow that one thing. Krishna should be pleased. So how all of you, the topic I was asked to speak about was how all of you who are in student life or in career life and, in the world, how the principle of sannyas or renunciation can be cultivated in your life. So it's resting upon the bhakti principle. I'll say it again. All other qualities follow this one quality, the quality of wanting to please Krishna. And so including this detachment from fruitive work principle or manifestation. Dedicate as much as you can factually from the core of your heart. Strive to connect with Krishna. Then you are in the world but not of the world. You're living a life of sannyas while engaged in worldly activity, including family, career, etc., studies, worldly success. Now, it's not the formal sannyas, it's the in-principle sannyas, detachment. In chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes, I'm saying the same thing in different ways. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. What does that mean? You can't be renounced unless you're attached to Krishna. The other way around. When you're attached to Krishna, you're renounced. You're renounced in the sense of you're renounced from trying to be the enjoyer. Vishaya. Anasaktasya Vishaya. without attachment to sense enjoyment. So that was summary, making some concluding statements so that you can contemplate what you'd like to explore in this topic. The teaching of Lord Chaitanya is the same as the teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam. The teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam is the same as the teaching of Lord Chaitanya. What's that? The teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam is sthane stitak, stay in your position. You don't have to wear saffron cloth and live in an ashram. You stay in your position according to your nature. You have a psychophysical nature. Live according to your psychophysical nature. Sthane stitak. Shruti gatam. Shruti gatam. Invest energy in Shruti gatam, in hearing messages, and dedicate yourself. Tanavan manobir. Body, mana, and vak. Body, mind, and words. Dedicated to the topics of transcendence, just as your study group is doing. Stay in your position. Hear from qualified persons, sadhu sangha, mentioned earlier. Hear from qualified persons and dedicate yourselves to those principles. Apply those principles by your own dedication to those messages, the sound vibration dedication. And that will lift your consciousness to the right kind of suitable detachment as well as suitable involvement. Because the things that you're engaged with, senses and sense objects, engage with them, is for Krishna service. And otherwise, you shrug your shoulders and you carry on with your life. That's a life of cultivation, of detachment from the fruits of your work. Inspired by and driven by, propelled by bhakti, pleasing Krishna. And it's incremental, little by little by little. So that's this according to suitability. Where you start may not be where you are in the middle, and may not be where you are at the end of your bhakti path. So according to suitability, you accept and you engage objects and senses in service to Krishna. Meanwhile, all the while, dedicating your body, mind, and words to the messages of transcendence through association with the devotees of the Lord, sadhu sangha. So those are some thoughts. I hope it's less than the time allotted. And there's room for lots of other things to be spoken. Let's see what thoughts you have on the question answer.
Okay, so thank you so much, Maharaj, for the lecture. And for those of you who have questions, this is the time. You can unmute your mic and ask your question. Yes, Santosh, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna and Dandavat Pranam to Guru Maharaj and all the devotees here. My question is regarding negative thoughts. Previously, before coming to Krishna consciousness, I used to dwell, enjoy and live in these negative thoughts. However, today there is a self-realization that yes, this is bad, this is negative, I have to get rid of this. So, will I have to fight all my life through these negative thoughts? Or will I rise to a stage where I can control these negative thoughts and fully dwell on Krishna consciousness? I wish to understand this, Guruji.
Classic question. And the answer is a whole seminar. But I'll just give some elements, if that's okay. By the way, I've given a seminar on this topic, and if you're interested, somebody can help you. Ajita, can you, if they're interested, make reference to where that seminar is recorded?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. with images and the whole thing. So there's a picture in your mind, a pyramid, and the base of the pyramid is broader than the tip of the pyramid, and the base of the pyramid is negative emotions, mode of ignorance. That's the base of the pyramid. In the middle is passion, fruitive activity, go, 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 etc. And at the top is higher consciousness, mode of goodness. So what you can do, or anyone that has a tendency to be captured by negative emotions, is hit the pause button and say, you know what? I don't really like these negative emotions, space. Let me cultivate the qualities of goodness. This is a cultivation of qualities topic or response. So what are symptoms of the quality of goodness besides the negative emotion stuff? You know, you find that in Bhagavad Gita: cleanliness, regulation, eating habits in the mode of goodness, cleanliness, truthfulness, compassion, charity, etc., etc. So you incubation chamber of your life, you move towards mode of goodness. A really good place to start is eating habits, because when the tongue is controlled, the other senses can be more easily controlled. So what you eat, mode of goodness foods, ideally prashadam, that which is offered to Krishna first, and at regular times, and not too much and not too little. So mode of goodness eating habits and other forms of cultivation of the mode of goodness will help give you relief from the bottom of the pyramid thing, the negative emotions. 2, that's just on the physical side and the modes of nature side. Another is the principle of tolerance. Another is the principle of detachment. Tolerance is here today and gone tomorrow, like the weather. It's this season and then it's that season. It's whatever those negative emotions are, what's prompting the negative emotion, the prompt and the emotion are temporary. So you tolerate because it's temporary. And while you're tolerating, what do? You direct your consciousness to that which is eternal instead of temporary. That's a principle. And you practice the principle, it becomes your life, it becomes second nature. You've heard that phrase, it's true. Practice something, it becomes second nature. What that means is, my nature is, I struggle with some negative emotions. They're down there, and they got a hold of me. That's where I've been hanging out for a long time, too long. So that's a tendency. And you cultivate something that's another tendency, and it replaces the prior tendency. By cultivation, by practice, it becomes your second nature. That's a phrase Prabhupada used. It's true. That means you're associating with the mode of goodness, and that mode of goodness displaces the mode of ignorance. You go to the mode of goodness instead of being captured by the mode of ignorance. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a cultivation. So it's tolerance, and you give your attention to light instead of darkness. So what's light for you? There's principles in Bhagavad Gita, and you find light that works for you, and you go there. You go there. And another, third principle is you're not that emotion. It's 101 in suicide hotlines. They help the person who's calling in the suicide hotline to understand that emotion that you're feeling and the situation that prompted that emotion you're feeling is not you. Huh? Yeah, you're the observer of the emotion. Now, part of the problem is identifying with the emotion. That's me. I'm my mind. I'm the emotions within my mind. That's me. instead of detachment by, it's not you. This is the spiritual conception, permits detachment from the negative emotion. And when you're in that detached space, you can function in terms of who you are instead of who you aren't. The negative emotion is who you aren't. So who are you? And that's also a cultivation. It works. It works even for those who aren't devotees, who aren't practicing yoga, who aren't practicing Bhagavad Gita's message. It works for people who are stuck in intense negative emotions. Now, it doesn't, again, it's not snap of fingers. It's a cultivation of knowledge and detachment. And most important, fourth, is when this is Stress Management 101, and it goes like this. Life threw a rock at you, or throws rocks at you, and it hurts. Now, how are you going to respond to the rock and the hurt? You take the rock and toss it in the air, and you consider what your options are. And you may not decide to do anything specific about the rock or the emotion, but to do something that's you, that gives you energy, gives you life, and you invest consciousness in that. And what happens is it's not you've ignored or denied or tucked it under the rug or something, or run away from it, because that doesn't work. You're doing something that brings light. Now, as I said, this is a big topic. There's a whole several-part seminar on that big topic, and it's called Art of Meditation, Overcoming Negative Emotions. 4-part seminar, maybe 6 to 8 hours long. But that's a quickie summary of 6 to 8 hour seminar.
Thanks a lot, Guru Maharaj. It's our blessings to listen to you today. Thank you very much.
And for those of you who have hard time understanding Maharaj, in case you're having a hard time, it is being recorded, and I'll share the recordings with you in the WhatsApp group, so you can listen to it again and again. Dr. Bhaskar Roy is saying, Pranam Swami Maharaj, current prep for postgraduate entrance exam, but my health is fluctuating a lot right now, in under medication and doing a little well. But my mind is distracting every time from my goal. How can I control this?
The answer that I gave just now has similar elements to what I would want to respond to this. I mean, yoga practice requires minimally, fundamentally, sense and mind control. And how your senses are engaged has impact on how your mind becomes steady or not. And the other way around, how your mind is fluctuating has a big impact on how your senses are controlled or not. The principle of controlling the mind, a lot depends upon your lifestyle. That is to say, a mode of goodness lifestyle promotes a mind that's more easily controlled. Or conversely, a lifestyle that's more in the mode of passion and ignorance makes the mind more difficult to control. So frame your life in general in the mode of goodness. It's not a quick fix, but it's a direction to move in so that you'll be able to control your mind more. And another very important principle is detachment. That is to say, when you're preparing for an exam or something, you know, the final product of your team in some corporate sector and something like that, detachment is, listen, it's very simple. Your department is the service department, and you do your service nicely to your capacity. And the results department, that's Krishna's department, and you don't try to manage Krishna's department because you're not the controller of results. You do your service nicely to your capacity, and the results are up to Krishna. Now, that's a principle. Some people, being more influenced by passion than by knowledge, they're attached, and the attachment causes anxiety and disturbed mind. The problem is mode of passion. You're not the creator of the results. Krishna is. He bestows results. So go to the position of, I'm the servant. Let me do my service as best I can for the pleasure of Krishna, and the results are up to Krishna. That's a lifestyle that leads to a mind that's more controlled because it's not disrupted by some false conception that you're the controller, that you can create the results. Directly in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, never think like that. If you don't hear that message, then you'll think like that. And then you'll have a mind that's disturbed. And
Thank you, Mark.
We don't like to be disturbed.
Okay. The next question is from Professor Pooja Gupta. Very good evening, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare.
I have a question. I find that getting attached to the fruits of action is rather easier to practice in professional life. But this becomes a little difficult when it comes to personal life and relationships. For example, attachment with parents or family, and while taking care of them, being worried about what becomes inevitable. Being worried becomes inevitable. So she's saying professional life, it's easy to be detached from the fruits of action, but not personal life.
Well, this brings up a question that, Ajita, you asked me to touch on, so she's prompting me to touch on it. This is a whole another big topic, and a whole other seminar on the phrase that I use is detached caring.
Detached caring.
Detached caring. So detached caring means you care about loved ones and family members and all kinds of people you care about, but you're not the controller. So you care in a manner where it's service to that soul and service to the Supreme Soul, Krishna, and you make your caring effort, and the results are up to Krishna. Now, the very nature of this place, the nature of the material world, is there are kleshas, there are disturbances, there's miseries. You know what they are. Disturbances caused by nature, disturbances caused by other living entities, disturbances caused by our own body and mind. Those disturbances are there. It's the nature of the place. So being you and I, being accepting of the nature of the place is what it is. I can't change the nature of the place. I can change how I interact with the place. So that's detached caring. I care, but I'm not the controller of the place. The only thing I have control of is how I can act and interact with the circumstances that are coming before me. So I'll give you a multiple choice question, A or B, and the answer is B. You will be most effective in being able to administer service to those who you care most about if you're really, really deeply attached to them. Or B, the intelligence from Supersoul will most likely be stronger if you care very deeply about individuals and you're leaving the direction of how to do that up to Krishna, and you're searching for direction from Krishna how to do that. B. When consciousness is clear from attachment, then you'll do better. And since that's what you want, is to do better for those who are dear to you and you're attached to and you love very much, go that path, go the B path. That's the detached caring path. Now, easier said than done, right? So, yeah, it's cultivation, and ultimately it rests upon bhakti, that is, for the pleasure of Krishna. Let my attachments to those who are really important to me, my family, etc., be for the pleasure of Krishna. It's not about me. It's about Krishna and Krishna's satisfaction. So those same things that you've learned in the career circuit of your life, apply those same principles in the human side of your life, the close ones, was easier to be attached to. Put them in the position of opportunities given by Krishna to serve Krishna by serving this soul, that soul, the other. Friends, family, relatives, those who are important to you. It's an opportunity for service to Krishna. Now, we're not accustomed to think that way. We're accustomed to think the other way. And then comes the turmoil, unnecessary. You'll do better at serving those persons if you have this detached caring principle down. You cultivate it. It works.
Thank you, Maharaj. Okay, next question is Sanjeev is saying, Dandavat Pranam Guruji, please enlighten on the query about family attachment is better managed, but for only Krishna consciousness, Hare Krishna. I think Maharaj covered that topic pretty nicely. Unless, Maharaj, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay. Bhaskar says, thank you so much. Ritu Rasai is saying, Hare Krishna Maharaj, how can one satisfy the senses of Krishna?
Well, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. The target has concentric circles, and there's a bullseye, or the center of that target. And the target is, you have senses, and when you're doing what is your nature, each of us have our nature, psychophysical nature, and we do things. And if the consciousness behind what you're doing, when you're doing those things, is the pleasure of Krishna, that's how you please Krishna. You do those very same things. You don't have to change what you do. You just change the consciousness behind what you do. That's bhakti. And that's pleasing the senses of Krishna. Pleasing Krishna is pleasing his senses. You take any particular thing, eating, family, work, shopping, paying your bills, talking on the phone, whatever, things we do in everyday, you do the everyday things for the pleasure of Krishna. Be mindful that Krishna should be pleased. That's bhakti.
I just want to repeat that Maharaj mentioned multiple times cultivation, that it doesn't just happen overnight. Yeah. It takes time. We're going to fail, we're going to fall, but we keep trying, and this cultivation, and thus we're able to experience what Maharaj is saying. And going on to the next question is Abhi Prabhu is asking, Hare Krishna Swamiji, how will you know when is the time to let go versus keep holding on?
It depends on the context of the situation. For example, if you know from scripture, guru, and sadhu that something is pleasing to Krishna, you don't let go. You may defer till later, but you don't let go. And if something is, in contrast, something that's an idea, a goal, or something like that you wish to attain, and it's not happening, then you shrug your shoulders and say, that's okay. If Krishna is not wanting, then that's okay. So it's just even on that, if it's not something let's just say distribution of books is something that our acharyas very clearly wanted without elaborating, or chanting the holy name, that's something that Krishna wants and our acharyas want for us. So we don't give up because, I haven't come to the stage of offenseless chanting yet, so I think I'll just stop. We don't let go of those things. We continue to strive for as long as it takes to come to the stage that meets the pleasure of Krishna or satisfy us within. We continue and continue and continue. But other things, generally those other things have to do with a fruitive goal. Now the fruitive goal can be something that you offer to Krishna. That's okay. I'm specifically thinking of an example where I know an individual who tried to start up, and it was failing, and it was failing, and it was borrowing money, and he was in full of anxiety, and people had belief in him, so they just gave him more money, loaned him more money, and it was going down and down. So I said, give yourself a cutoff point, and if it's not in the green by that cutoff point time, just let go. He didn't let go, and it got worse and worse, and his relationships got spoiled. People were really mad at him because they believed in him, and he was, he's spiraling down and down. So, worldly things, you make a timeline, and at that point, you evaluate, and you just let go. That's not happening. That's not meant to happen. We had a really nice discussion yesterday, just yesterday, a pastime of Lord Chaitanya from Chaitanya Bhagavat. I won't go into it because it went for a whole hour plus, but there was a Brahmana who was visiting the home of Lord Chaitanya's mother and father, and he was making an offering, and when he called his Gopal mantra, Lord Chaitanya's Gopal, so he came and ate the offering before it was offered to his Shalagram Shila. And he was, and then concluded, well, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Anyway, even in devotional activity, there may be something, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. So instead of rice, I'll just take fruits and roots. I'm a mendicant anyways, and I'm fine with that. So you accept that which comes naturally by Krishna's arrangement. You make some effort to make some nice rice preparation or nice offering to Krishna, whatever it might be in your life at that particular juncture of time. And you may want to. That's nice. And if it's not happening, it's okay. You make offering whatever you can. So a lot depends on the application of what it is that's not happening and when you let go. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Ragini Mataji, why don't you ask your question verbally?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Actually, my question was, does woman she can become a monk, Prabhuji? And what are the roles and responsibilities if she become a monk, what she can follow?
Are you interested in becoming a monk? Or is it notional question?
Yeah. Might be, Prabhuji, in future, if my parents will agree that.
If your parents would let you do that, you would do that. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Well, it's not exactly monk, but living a solitary life where one is not married and thus not engaged in male-female association. I know a number of women that are doing that, and they're very happy. So what does it look like? It depends on the individual. I mean, one person, without going into too many anecdotal things, one person got their PhD in something. And mom and dad said, okay, now it's time to get married. And they said, you know what? I'm really happy, and I'm not really inclined to get married. What? So they're living their life in a mature and responsible way, and they're absorbed in the mission because their PhD, they want to reach, this particular individual, they want to reach other PhDs and make the message of bhakti relevant to people that have that ivory tower outlook on life, intellectual, rational, picture of what life is, what's important in life. They want to reach the hearts and the minds of those people, and they're dedicating themselves to that principle. And they're very happy. So what it's going to look like depends upon the individual. You know, their personal maintenance is taken care of. Their mom and dad have funds. They don't have to worry about that in the later stages of their life. So, you know, they're biding their time, and maybe at some point in time, they'll just become part of some ashram or not. I mean, a nice example of this, another nice example is Mother Jamuna. You might want to read her biography. It's not an autobiography, it's a biography about her life. And she lived with another Mataji, and Jamuna, the very celebrated singer, and her life was devoted to Prabhupada. And, you know, during the time that she was living the way that she was living, not in an ashram, but with her friend, they set up a little place where ladies could stay. So like a ladies' ashram kind of thing. And so they were living simply and they were contented. So what it's going to look like depends, you know, it's going to vary from individual to individual. But, you know, you have your expectations of family members and so forth and so on. You have to deal with that in a way that's appropriate for you in the particulars. But it's certainly a viable path to move in. And there's examples even during Lord Chaitanya's time where ladies lived such a life.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your guidance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Ramakanda Prabhu, do you want to ask? Or should I read your... I'll read your question. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. How one can remain in the mode of goodness, while pursuing career goals?
You have to have a good compass. You have to know where north is and keep your compass in front of you and head north. Meaning, you don't go into lying and cheating and stepping on heads and stepping on faces and stepping on toes. And a nice example of this, really good example of this, I forget the name of the author right now. From Good to Great is the title of the book. And there was a researcher who spent a decade, he was funded to do his research, of Fortune 500 companies, and those that were good, some became great, and what made them great? And he found it was two main things. The CEO, the great CEO, was humble, and there was different ways of grading or evaluating humble. And the other was they were really interested in doing that which is going to give value to others. That's mode of goodness. You know, charity and sacrifice for others, selfless work, and humble. So those stepping back from the model of a successful entrepreneur. Gosh, that doesn't fit. You got to be really aggressive. And you got to do what's needed. You know, even if it's dirty, you do what's needed. But those that are in the mode of, they abide by the quality of goodness, and they have their compass. They know what goodness looks like, and they're always heading towards it. Even if it means short term, you're not going to make a profit like you could if you did something that wasn't so clean. You just don't compromise. And those persons truly excel. Now, of course, that has a lot to do with guna and karma, not just guna. So you're destined to prosper according to karma. And you just live and guide your life by that compass, the heading north compass, or heading the direction you want to head in. Because that's a value. It's alignment of unchanging principles, values, and your behaviors. That kind of alignment.
Okay. Maharaj, is it possible to pull the mic a little closer to your mouth?
Yes, it's possible, but I think you just change the volume. Are you not hearing me?
It's a little too low.
Okay, he's adjusting the volume. Is that better?
Much better. All right. Akshat Mukashi. Akshat, do you want to ask or should I read your question? You can unmute and ask if you like. Okay, I'll read. Dandavat Pranam Maharaj. I can't concentrate enough. I take a lot of time to understand certain topics. And when something weird happens, I tend to regret. How can detachment principle help me?
Well, that negative emotion topic that was already touched on will help you a lot. So, art of meditation, overcoming negative emotions, the principles that are there and that 6 to 8 hour seminar will help you a lot. And a shorter answer is how you chant the Mahamantra daily. How you chant the Mahamantra daily will help you in the field that you just described. That is to say, if you learn the art of meditation, mantra meditation, when you apply that art to other features of life, you'll find the same principle, the same spiritual power carries over into other features of your life. Interpersonal, work, social, etc.
Okay. Yogesh Prabhu, please ask your question. Can unmute, yeah. You're not audible, Mike.
Oh, sorry about that. What is psychophysical nature, and how does one identify his or her own psychophysical nature? And when one identifies it, what should you do about it? Do you actually take in the effort to strive to correct it, or do you make peace with it and engage in service of Krishna?
The second part is you make peace with it. You recognize you have a psychophysical nature and you gauge. That's the sthane statak from the Bhagavatam. Sthane statak. Stay within your position. And how to recognize, so be at peace with it, accept it. How to recognize, just to keep it simple, two things. When you study the Bhagavad Gita, and then in turn you study the Bhagavatam, you'll have the principles by which you can understand your psychophysical nature. That's knowledge will give you light, and you'll be able to understand through that knowledge and light what your nature is. The sections, the largest topic in the entire Bhagavad Gita deals with the modes of nature, the three modes. So a lot of nature has to do with the modes. And it applies to everything, knowledge, happiness, eating, etc. So Bhagavad Gita will teach you. Srimad Bhagavatam will further teach you. And the second principle, repeatedly, when you read Bhagavad Gita, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. That's how you'll get confirmation. And someone may be in your life, most likely, someone or someones that know you well, and through that person you'll receive some illumination as to what your nature is. Through guidance, you'll have, and their guidance is simply according to Scripture. So those are ways that you can understand your psychophysical nature, and then you abide by it. You may also, in addition, you may want to cultivate, let's say, a higher nature, a mode of goodness nature that's different than yours today. Let's say, supposing someone has the nature of becoming angry. So you don't just shrug your shoulders and say, I guess that's my nature, so I just get angry. You can cultivate another situation by applying principles of cultivation of higher qualities. So we discussed that already a little bit.
Right. Deepak.
Dhanyavad much.
Is the volume better now?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Much better. Is it okay, Yogesh? You have follow-up?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Deepak is asking, Dandavat Pranam to Maharaj. My question is it really possible to remember Krishna all the time? Example, how one can remember Krishna even while solving math problems or any kind of work? He's a student.
Answer, yes. And how? By becoming attached to Krishna. When you're attached to someone, you'll think of that someone. If you're attached to something, you'll think of that something. The example given is a mother and her child. Is the mother, when solving a math problem, thinking of her dependent child? Ask a mother. She's thinking of her child. It's like in her being. Or young boy, young girl in a romance, and he's doing his homework. Is he thinking about his homework, or is he thinking about this romantic relationship with the young girl, or the young boy with it? It's for the girl. So where there's attachment, no, it doesn't mean you must be distracted from the math problem, or you must be distracted from what you're doing, because the mind is a binary processor, and you're either attached to this or that. So it's a deeper sense of awareness through relationship than just the immediate focus. It's the deeper sense of relationship through attachment, and that way always think of Krishna. So the answer is yes. The Brijbasis are a perfect example. They're always Krishna conscious.
Cool. Shivam is asking, Hare Krishna, Swami Maharaj, I offer my humble obeisances. My question is, at times, I get derailed from Krishna conscious activities and bhakti. This mostly happens when I get attached to fruitive materialistic work. What should I do to fall back in the bhakti track again?
Mode of goodness, that is regulation. And one of those regulations is right in Bhagavad Gita. From whatever and wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, bring the mind back. And you practice bring the mind back, bring the mind back, bring the mind back. And even you can train a monkey what to speak of the mind by regular practice, cultivation of the quality of goodness. It takes time, as was already mentioned multiple times. It's a cultivation, but it's doable in time. There's as cleansing of the mind. We know this from Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Cheta darpanamarjanam. When the mind becomes cleansed, then distraction subsides or slackens. So clean your mind and you'll be more focused.
There's a lot of appreciation coming in from devotees for your questions. I'm not reading all of them, so I'm just focusing on the questions. Any questions anybody wants to ask by unmuting their mic?
How are we doing with time? Looks to me like
we have 15 more minutes, around 15 more minutes.
We have 15 more minutes.
You want to end? We can end now.
Well, if there's interest, I guess we can continue. But if interest is waning and if people are kind of emotionally and mentally checked out.
Okay. We'll end it here then. If there are no burning questions. All right.
Ago, if time permits, few words on art of meditation of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. How do we rightly do it? If we can get something from Guru Maharaj, it will be great.
He wants
Okay.
to know how to do mantra meditation effectively. That's the question.
Effectively, yes.
Well, welcome to 16 different seminars on that topic, each lasting multiple hours. So this is it's a life's work. It's not a quick fix answer. I'll give a synopsis or a distilled little version. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the essence is the effort that one makes. There's this technique, this principle, that principle, and it's all propelled by wanting deep within your heart, wanting to connect with Krishna. And if it's not, to the degree that it is there, then whatever principle or technique or tool that you apply can be effective. And otherwise, it won't be. And you'll jump from one thing to another thing and fall asleep and get distracted and so on. The essential principle is making a sincere and genuine effort to connect with Krishna. And then you take the tools and methods that seem to work best for you. If you want to know what some of those tools and methods and techniques are, there's abundant recordings of, we call them Festival of the Holy Name or Japa retreats. Abundant. Those are tools and techniques and methods. But the turbocharger behind all of that is the desire to be connected to Krishna in your relationship with Krishna.
Maharaj, there are two more questions from very sincere,
Okay.
long-standing devotees.
Go for it.
Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for giving us your divine association. I would like to ask you that when something goes wrong, which makes me angry or sad, I fail to take decisions which pleases Krishna. And it makes me sad when I realize that I shouldn't have done that. Kindly guide me on how I can respond better to unfavorable situations and apply detachment principle.
This question is quite similar to two other prior questions. And I don't mind that it's similar, but the response is going to be quite similar. That is, when you recognize there's this tendency to become angry or sad, and it repeats and repeats, there's a red flag. Here's something I need to work on, which is what the question is about. But so once it's identified, mode of goodness, please, because where does anger or sadness arise from? Answer, Bhagavad Gita. It arises from contact with the mode of passion. Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna Samudbhava. Very simple. Rajoguna. So what's the alternative? Is there another option besides Rajoguna if that's the root? Yes. What's that? Mode of goodness. Oh, how do I cultivate mode of goodness? So we go down the path of cultivation of qualities. And the most essential element in development of qualities is wanting to please Krishna. That's the essential element. To have mode of goodness really work and sustain and manifest in your life instead of the anger and sadness, the mode of goodness quality is wanting to please Krishna. So that's the bhakti principle. That's the bhakti principle. So when you find yourself entering into a space where this anger or sadness starts, step back, mode of goodness. You go into reflective space, you practice it, it becomes second nature. You look at, there's that ignorance, that's that anger thing, there's the sadness thing, and that's not me. It's the modes of nature acting in my life, and they have a grip on me, but I want to say no to that mode of nature and the other mode of nature, passion and ignorance, and I want to choose mode of goodness. A really nice example is found in the story of Dhruva Maharaj. I hope you don't mind. Scriptural reference. Dhruva Maharaj became very angry, really angry, at his stepmother, because what she did was, unconscionable, not just unwholesome. It was terrible what she did and said. So he became very angry. His mother, Narada, and Swayambhuva Manu, all three of them, corrected him from that tendency. And he went on the other side of that tendency. And the method of going on the other side of that tendency was mind control, sense control, and ultimately taking shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. He did it and was successful. And the anger and sadness went away. Now, Dhruva was an exceptional person, but the principle applies to you and me. So you can read that section, or again, it's an 8-part seminar on the prayers of Dhruva, the lesson of Dhruva Maharaj, and it's really powerful, I find, and people who hear and participate in that topic, it's powerful. It gives one strength to not succumb to anger and sadness by connecting with an exalted personality, Dhruva, and his mother, and Narada. It works. It works. Hearing the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam about great personalities, it works. You'll go beyond that tendency. It may take some time. Cultivation takes time. But the method, the path, the means, there it is. Go for it. May you be successful. May you be successful in overcoming anger and sadness.
Wow. You got blessed, Krishna. Wow. Indranath, last question. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. As Maharaj said, you should be at the top in your career. You should be at the top of your career if you are in Krishna consciousness. But if I'm not able to be at the top, in spite of trying my best, what should we do to be at the top?
No.
Should we?
No. This is that question. Where do you draw the line? You may strive for excellence. Excellence doesn't mean be at the top. You, according to the endowments that Krishna has given you, you use them. And as you use them, Krishna smiles and says, you know what? Let me give some more endowment of ability to this person. So you according to your capacity, you strive, and you leave the results up to Krishna. It's not like you have to be at the top. That's not what I said. You strive for excellence. The standard of excellence is what Krishna has given you. You use that in his service, mindfully, intelligently, devotionally, to your capacity. And it is what it is. Let's just say, use a simple example, book distribution. Some people are really, really, really gifted at book distribution. Some people are kind of mediocre. Some people are kind of small-timers. The excellence is whatever ability Krishna has given you, you distribute books to your capacity and smile. It's not like, oh, I have to compete and be the best distributor. No. Or so any other, the field that you're in. It's not you have to be the top. It gets pretty lonely up there. Unless you're Krishna conscious. Then you can be Krishna conscious wherever you are, because whatever endowment Krishna has given, you're using that for his pleasure. That's the standard. Okay, I think we're done.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Good luck to all of you. Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavad pranam.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Dandavad pranam, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.